Before we get into this, subscribe to the channel now. This channel exists for people who take history seriously, who care about what actually kept men alive when institutions collapsed and ideology meant nothing. What you're about to hear is not the polished version of World War II survival you get in textbooks. These are the techniques prisoners of war used when no Red Cross parcel arrived, when guards looked the other way, and when survival depended on adapting faster than the system intended you to die in. If you're here for comfortable history, this is not it. If you're here to understand what endurance really looks like, stay with me. Most people think POW survival came down to luck, morale, or heroic resistance. That's a myth created after the war. Survivors lived because they learned quickly, broke rules intelligently, and exploited every weakness in the camp ecosystem. These were not acts of rebellion, they were acts of calculation, and many of them are never discussed because they are uncomfortable, morally grey, and brutally pragmatic. Starving prisoners learned to hack their own metabolism before the body collapsed. World War II POWs discovered early that eating every scrap immediately was a death sentence. In camps like Stalag Luft 3 and Japanese labour camps along the Burma Railway, prisoners learned to slow their metabolism by controlling intake timing. Instead of consuming all calories at once, they rationed tiny portions across the day to reduce insulin spikes and stave off crashes. Some even diluted food with water to increase stomach volume and suppress hunger signals. Modern survivalists can apply this by learning calorie pacing during scarcity situations rather than binge-eating limited supplies, a mistake that accelerates physical decline. Men survived by weaponizing boredom and routine rather than fighting it. Guards use monotony as a psychological weapon. POWs countered by creating rigid personal routines that gave structure to otherwise meaningless days. Prisoners assigned themselves mental tasks, language study, imaginary map drawing, or daily physical movements, even when malnutrition made it painful. This was not about morale in the abstract. It prevented cognitive decay and decision fatigue. Today, this principle applies directly to long-term isolation or crisis environments. Structure preserves mental sharpness when external control removes autonomy. Trading skills mattered more than strength or rank. Physical dominance meant little behind wire, you know. What kept men alive was being useful. Prisoners of war who could repair boots, mend clothing, translate languages, or barter information were fed more often and protected by these informal networks. In Japanese camps, men who could calculate workloads or understand engineering were at times spared the worst labour. The practical takeaway is, well, pretty clear. In any constrained environment, value creation beats brute resilience. Survival favours those who can offer something others need, even under oppression. Prisoners learned how to steal food without triggering punishment cycles. Now, this is rarely discussed because, honestly, it sounds criminal, but survival depended on precision theft. POWs observed guard routines, inventory practices, and blind spots. Food was stolen in quantities small enough to go unnoticed, and quite often redistributed through trusted micro-networks. Large thefts, on the other hand, triggered crackdowns that killed people. The lesson here isn't theft itself, but rather understanding system tolerance thresholds. In modern crisis situations, drawing minimal attention while meeting essential needs can, in fact, mean the difference between adaptation and catastrophe. Illness was managed through early intervention, not treatment. Medical care was, well, scarce or sometimes just non-existent. Prisoners of war survived by treating illness before it even became visible. Small wounds were cleaned obsessively, using whatever improvised antiseptics they could manage, like heated water, ash filtration, or diluted soap when it was available. Men rested injuries immediately, rather than pushing through, because honestly, infection meant death. The modern parallel here is preventive care under scarcity. Ignoring small problems until they become emergencies is frankly fatal when systems fail. Social camouflage kept prisoners alive longer than defiance ever did. Hollywood, you know, celebrates open resistance. But real survival came from blending in. POWs who avoided standing out, arguing with guards or displaying emotional extremes, well, they lasted longer. They learned guard personalities, adjusted posture, facial expressions, and even walking speed to avoid drawing attention. This is uncomfortable to admit, but survival often meant compliance without submission. In contemporary hostile environments, situational awareness and adaptive behavior still outperform confrontation. Hope was rationed just like food. Survivors didn't cling to constant optimism. They allowed themselves controlled pessimism. POWs broke time into manageable units, surviving the next hour, then the next day, then the next week. Unrealistic hope crushed men when it failed. Measured expectation preserved resilience. This is actually directly applicable today in long-term hardship scenarios. Emotional regulation matters as much as physical endurance. These survival tricks weren't noble, clean, or inspirational in the traditional sense. They were effective. They reveal a truth that, well, many historians avoid. Survival under extreme systems requires adaptability, restraint, and sometimes moral compromise. POWs didn't survive because they were heroes. They survived because they learned faster than the environment could kill them. If this kind of history matters to you, subscribe to the channel and share this with someone who still thinks survival is about toughness alone. This channel is about preserving the knowledge that kept real people alive when the world stopped caring.